Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Let me tell you about the craziest night of my life. My best friend, Zach, fake name, and I had just finished a late-night movie marathon. We were walking home chatting about the movies when suddenly, out of nowhere, this car came screeching around the corner. It happened so fast, one moment we were on the sidewalk, the next, we were sprawled on the ground a few feet away. The car, a shiny black sedan, had swerved right into us. I remember feeling a sharp pain in my leg and then seeing Zach trying to sit up, his face twisted in pain. The driver's door swung open and out stumbled this lady. She was clearly drunk, her steps wobbly, and her words slurred. "What's wrong with you kids, jumping in front of my car like that?" She slurred, pointing a shaky finger at us. I couldn't believe my ears. We were on a sidewalk. I shouted, trying to get up, but the pain in my leg was too intense. Zach was quieter, but I could see the anger in his eyes. "I should sue you for damaging my car," she continued, her words slurring together. Her eyes were unfocused and she reeked of alcohol. Zach, ever the calm one, tried to reason with her. "Ma'am, you hit us. We were just walking. You need to call an ambulance." But she wasn't listening. She stumbled back to her car and drove off, leaving us there on the ground. Thankfully, a couple who witnessed the accident came over and called an ambulance for us. At the hospital, we gave our statements to the police, and we were lucky in a way. I had a broken leg and Zach had some bruises and a sprained wrist, but it could have been much worse. But here's where it gets really crazy. A few weeks later, Zach and I received notices that we were being sued by the lady who hit us. She was claiming that we had caused the accident and were responsible for the damages to her car. We were shocked. How could she possibly blame us? We were the victims here. But as we later found out, that's the thing about entitled people. They twist the truth to suit their needs, no matter how absurd it might sound. We knew we had to fight back. Neither of us had much money, but we couldn't let her get away with this. We found a lawyer who was willing to take our case pro bono, impressed by the injustice of it all. The court case was surreal, and there she was, dressed in an expensive suit, telling the judge how we had recklessly jumped in front of her car. Her lawyer was smooth-talking, trying to paint us as reckless teenagers out late at night, looking for trouble. But we had the truth on our side. The couple who had witnessed the accident testified for us. The police report showed that she had been drunk at the time of the accident. Our lawyer was brilliant, calmly tearing apart her story and presenting the facts. In the end, the judge saw right through her lies. Not only did we win the case, but she was also fined big time for her reckless behavior and for attempting to defraud us, and we also later pressed charges for harassment. It was a huge relief, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders. Some relevant information. I'm 6'5" and 250 pounds. I don't have the temperament for retail. I work alone as a delivery driver, taking pharmaceuticals from a central warehouse to several stores, all for the same Blue Cat company. I am easily bothered by the way customers treat pharmacy techs. Seriously guys, it's not their fault your insurance didn't go through. Yelling won't change that. I've become fairly close with a lot of these techs, as they had to see me daily. Now to the incident. I walked into the store dragging my cart full of boxes. I am wearing shorts and a t-shirt. As I come up to the counter, there is this woman screaming at the tech. This tech was under 20 years old and was backing up as far as she could. The pharmacist was given a shot and couldn't leave for a minute. I was almost giddy at this. As I planned for weeks what I would do if the situation ever came up in front of me again. I walked up to this pleasantly plump woman with her bleach blonde soccer mom haircut and oversized pink glasses. "Excuse me, ma'am." "What?" she yelled, spinning on her heels and looking me dead in the, I wish I could say well-defined but why lie, chest. Then she slowly looked up at my not at all handsome or smiling face. "Do you really want to be yelling at someone who can replace your insulin with sugar water?" "Excuse me," she said, not quite as mean as before. I think what I said was sinking in. Think about it, ma'am. This lady could, though I don't think she would, replace one of your pills with potassium cyanide and no one could ever trace it. She stormed off. The tech thanked me and I made my delivery. Just as I was getting the last signature, the customer came storming back. She of course was dragging the store manager. "That's him. I demand that you fire him." "I can't. It doesn't really work here." I spent the rest of the week waiting for my boss to fire me. The next day, that pharmacy gave me a plate of homemade brownies. I've spent that last 6 years waiting for a chance to use that line again. But so far, no luck. So I work at a hotel in a city that has been hit pretty hard by COVID. Our state has shut everything down and we are just kind of getting back to normal. Prior to the pandemic, we had a 4-room service menu and cleaning was every day without the need to request it. However, after COVID, posed to reduce contact to a minimum and due to the staffing issues the whole state is having, the room service is no longer available and the cleaning of the rooms is done by request only. Hence the fact that if you request it every day, your room will be cleaned every day, no questions asked. Now that I gave you context, to the Karen. This guest stayed with us before, about 3 times pre-COVID and 7 times post-COVID. So he's fully aware, or so we would think, of the policies, which are also clearly explained when you make your reservation. Night 1, he calls a front desk trying to order pizza, just to have the front desk explain the situation all over again, which leads to him requesting one of us to go somewhere and buy pizza for him, which we politely declined by teaching him how to use Uber Eats. Day 2. This male Karen comes to desk enraged about his room not being cleaned while he was gone, saying he knew about the request policy but he finds it ridiculous and his room should be cleaned anyways. Night 2. Same call about room service, same interaction. Now this male Karen comes down filming and yelling, "How do you guys call yourselves a hotel and won't behave like one? I will sue you for allowing my kid to starve and not providing the food for him. You're all going to jail. I will lose your jobs. I travel all around the world and all hotels have food available." Well, male Karen, if you travel all around the world, you should know to read the terms and conditions. And also, you would know to check the minibar and drawers for the large amount of snacks and drinks available there for your spoiled kid. Every year my family does Christmas at my mom's and she insists that we open all presents together, even gifts between spouses and so on. It's normally an okay tradition, but sometimes it can spark jealousy or comparisons between families. This year my husband saved up and bought me my dream designer handbag for Christmas. I know some people aren't into that, but it's something that I truly love. We're not well off, but we're not doing poorly either. But I knew that the handbag would cause a lot of discussion amongst my siblings and parents. I just didn't want their opinions and criticism to ruin a special gift my husband worked hard to get for me. So this year my husband got me an extra gift that wasn't the real gift. It was a moderately priced skincare set. Christmas came and went without drama, but I recently posted the picture of my husband and our kids at dinner, and my handbag could be seen hanging out the back of my chair. One of my friends commented underneath about how gorgeous my Christmas gift was as well. Long story short, word got back to my family and they totally blew up. Some were annoyed that I opened the private gift separately from the family. Others were criticizing the price of the gift. My siblings are now calling me disingenuous for harboring a secret gift. And they said that I did it because I think I'm better than them. I didn't open it with them because I didn't want their opinions, but now I'm starting to feel like I'm a jerk for keeping it a secret. I knew either way that they would all criticize me though, since it was so much more expensive than all the other gifts. So I don't know whether or not I'm wrong here. And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're not a jerk." And honestly, it's time you be 100% bluntly honest with them. Screen cap all their snarky comments and send a group chat with them stating, "If you all want to know so badly why I harbored a secret gift, as you call it, these types of comments are exactly why. This bag is not something I thought I would ever have, as we're not well off enough to make purchases similar in cost to this bag. But my dear husband worked his butt off and saved up to get it for me, and instead of being happy for us, you talk crap. You call it a waste of money or claim that I think I'm better than you. The behavior all of you have around Christmas gifts sucks the joy out of even getting something like this, And had I opened it at mom's house in front of all of you, I wouldn't even have been able to be happy about it because I knew all of you would react exactly as you did. Honestly, I am not sure if my family and I will be continuing to take part in this tradition because we are tired of the jealousy, the comparisons, and competition. It's tiring. It makes it hard to be happy with the gifts we get, even if we would be ecstatic to get them, as I was with this bag when he gave it to me. Or something similar. Basically just point blank put your feelings out there. Call out the jealousy, the criticism, the comparisons, and competition. If you can give specific examples of such things, so that they can't go, "Oh, that's in your head." If they cop it out and say that they are fine with it, tell them that's fine, but that you are not. And honestly, after their reaction to the bag, I would tell them that you and your family are considering stepping back from the tradition due to how tiring it's become. Another commenter adds, "Why are you allowing your mother to dictate when you, a grown woman, are allowed to open gifts from your husband? You're not a jerk here for opening the gift your husband gave you, but you're being a jerk to your husband engaging in this farce where your mother controls you to the point you had to open a fake gift. Seriously, time to grow up. Tell your mother that your family will be opening gifts Christmas morning. Before visiting your mother, you will no longer open your husband's gifts in front of her because that's a special moment between the two of you. It's also none of your mother's or siblings' business why he gets you or how much he was spent. Honestly, this is so controlling, and it's what caused all this stupid sibling rivalry. Your mother made it your sibling's business what your husband buys you for Christmas. Nope, that ends. Don't discuss it, don't engage. Just inform them that you will go to mom's house after you've opened presents at home. When they get mad, say it's not up for debate. If they persist, then leave. A third commenter goes with, "It doesn't make sense to bring gifts between families to one person's home, then take them all the way back home just because family wants to see you open them. That is ridiculous. For next year, tell the family you are not doing it. Gifts between you and your husband will be opened when the two of you want to open them. And any gifts are not open to their critiques. Just who do they think they are? Cut and paste. This is my gift from my husband. I like it. I am not taking comments about it at this time. And because of your very not Christmassy attitudes, my husband and I will be opening our gifts at our home." A fourth commenter seals it with, "Not the jerk. My dad is super good at browbeating and guilt tripping when we kids don't do things his way. So I know how it feels to feel like you can say no to a parent. But I promise you that you can. And they may pitch a fit about it, but in the end, if they actually care about your feelings as their child, they will back down. But you need to tell your mom that you and your husband are not participating in this tradition any longer. I feel like what you did was very polite. How you spend money is private. You decided not to make it showy. Your family is acting ridiculous." In early 2020, I was hired under the title Assistant Manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires if you're American, and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owned several stores. I reported directly to my manager, who then reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy. I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part, as I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months. He would also knock off work early and start drinking beer while the rest of us continued to work. I remember when he found out that I participated in MMA training sessions after work, and he tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly, this guy didn't like me, and I was starting to get the feeling that he was trying to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, my employment. I became even more certain of that with what happened next. The story. During the few months that I had worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and sales records didn't match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour after work trying to figure out where the errors were coming from, whilst the manager would simply throw his hands in the air and exclaim that he had no idea how this was happening. The recurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our sales/invoicing software. Other times there would be less. I was at the time an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree. I was already suspicious of the cash being out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up until this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me. And boy, was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off. During this time, I managed the personal record in store sales, and also noticed something interesting. The cash was never out at the end of each shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company, given I was acting manager during the time my manager was away. I was expected to report to the owner every day, and I explained what had been occurring whilst the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful that the owner would be having a word with the manager about the discrepancies. However, I was also wary, as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager that the manager would immediately know it was me who reported this. When the manager returned to work, he immediately approached me with a disgruntled look on his face. "I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies? You should focus on your job properly, and this wouldn't happen." I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place the blame on me. Given his reaction, I am even more suspicious at this point. He wants me to do my job properly, eh? Malicious compliance ensues. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager. Behind his back, I began examining all of his sale transactions and invoices with a fine comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty. When it came to a few cash sales, my manager was doing the following. Example, would tell the customer the price is $200 if he pays cash. Would discount the price by $50 in a sales/invoice software. Would put the extra cash in a till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash up at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket this extra cash whilst no one was around. Though he was very foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled. Hence, why the cash would be up some days, didn't swindle enough, or the cash would be down, swindled too much. The end. I took screenshots of the discounts he had been given on sales and sent them to the business owner, along with a report. A report was a detailed description of my findings. The report also showed that on all days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. When he was there, well, the owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test, pee in a cup style, on the same day he found out. And no surprises, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite the meth habit. This was most likely his sole motive for stealing cash, and the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in this store, and so the thought of a manager walking around high as a kite wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professional. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred under this manager's watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract and was later taken to court by the owner in an attempt to recover the stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. Hey there, I'm a street musician and I've got a tale that still makes my head spin. You see, I play guitar in a bustling city streets where all sorts of people pass by. But there was this one day, well, it turned out to be quite the showdown with an entitled mother. I was strumming my guitar, a beautiful acoustic that's been my companion for years, sitting beside my trusty guitar case open for tips. The music was flowing and so were the smiles of the passers-by. Suddenly, this woman approached me with her kid, a boy around 8 years old. He seemed pretty ordinary at first, wearing sunglasses and a fancy handbag. The kid seemed fascinated by my music and I gave him a friendly nod. "Excuse me," she said in a tone that already felt a bit off. "My son loves your guitar. He wants to try it." I am generally a nice guy, so I replied, "Sure, he can strum a few chords under my watch." But as soon as I handed over the guitar, the kid started handling it pretty roughly. I quickly took it back, trying to be as gentle as possible. "Hey, it's an old guitar. Gotta treat it with care," I said with a smile. The mother's demeanor shifted drastically. "Why did you snatch it from him? He was just playing," she snapped. I tried to explain it's a delicate instrument and it's also my livelihood. I can't risk it getting damaged. She didn't seem to care. You should let my son play it. He's a prodigy, you know? I shook my head. Sorry, but no. I need to continue my performance. And that's when things went south. The woman's face turned red with anger. You're being selfish. My son deserves to play your guitar more than you. Before I knew it, she tried to grab my guitar from me. A tug-of-war ensued, and I was trying my best not to let go, afraid she'd damage it. People started to notice, and a small crowd formed around us. "Man, please, you need to stop," I pleaded. Out of nowhere, she attempted to kick over my guitar case, spilling the coins and bills onto the sidewalk. The kid just stood there looking confused and embarrassed. Just then, a couple of bystanders stepped in. "Is everything alright here?" one of them asked. "This man stole my son's guitar," the woman shouted, pointing at me. I was flabbergasted. "That's not true. This is my guitar. I'm a street performer." The crowd seemed skeptical of her claim. Then one of the bystanders, a kind-looking elderly gentleman, chimed in. "I've seen this young man here many times. That's his guitar." The woman was fuming. "You're all against me and my son," she yelled. The situation was getting out of hand and someone must have called the police because soon 2 police officers showed up. They started asking questions, trying to figure out what was going on. I explained the situation and the officers turned to the woman. She kept insisting the guitar was her son's, but her story was full of holes. One of the officers, a woman with no-nonsense look, asked, "Do you have any proof that this guitar belongs to your son?" Of course she didn't. It was then that the kid, probably overwhelmed by the situation, spoke up. "Mom, let's just go. It's not ours." The woman looked at her son, then back at the officer, her face a mix of anger and embarrassment. The officers warned her about her behavior, but as they were about to let her go, she made one last lunge for my guitar. That was the last straw. The officer immediately handcuffed her and she was taken away, still shouting and making a scene. The kid was taken aside by the other officer, looking really upset about everything. I was just relieved that my guitar was safe. I live in a consolidated county. That means that the city and county governments merged some years back, ostensibly to reduce administrative and infrastructure costs. This is important because services like fire, police, utilities, and trash pickup are now managed by former county officials and not the city officials. Many of these services are also much more inefficient, and some services have been outsourced to private companies. My municipality outsourced trash and yard waste pickup a few years ago, and the 2 companies who now do these collections are woefully inadequate, and their services cost more than when a city or county did it. They both have similar sets of rules. What can be put out for collection, take fewer types of waste away, and no longer come 2 days a week as the city once did, but now only come 1 day a week. We're all paying more money for less service. Now that the background is done, here is the story. I did some yard work over the course of a couple of weekends last summer, cutting some limbs, trimming some shrubbery, and cutting down a dead tree in my backyard. Knowing what the rules are for how much yard waste, limbs, leaves, and such can be put out, I bagged everything that was supposed to be bagged, filling up 3 of them. Things like leaves and small clippings, weeds and such. The paper bag for yard waste from the big box home improvement stores are what they require. So I use those. I just fill them halfway up so as to not make them too heavy for the waste collectors, even though there are no written weight restrictions. However, if a bag is too full, they will knock it over to spill out the contents, so they then don't have to pick it up. I cut the larger limbs down to under 4 feet in length, or they wouldn't be picked up. Anything at all they can do to get out of picking something up, they will do, and they almost always leave a horrendous mess behind them when they do pick things up. The pile put out for collection is not allowed to be any wider than 10 feet, nor any deeper or higher than 5 feet, nor may contain any pieces longer than 4 feet. All bags must be placed in a row, no more than 3 feet away from the limb pile. My pile was maybe 4 inches longer than the 10 feet, and only because of the tiny ends of the limbs, smaller than a toothpick, hanging out of the pile. The pile was no higher than 3 feet and no deeper than 4 feet. In other words, it fell within the size limits, except for a few twigs with leaves. I also had the 3 bags, each about half full of clippings and leaves, all lined up exactly as required, and about 2 feet away from the main pile. They were scheduled to come on a Tuesday, but when I got home from work that afternoon, it was all still there. There was a pre-printed notice on my door that my pickup exceeded the proscribed size limits, and the note said that I would be required to either pay a $250 oversized load fee or reduce the size of the pile by half to make it fit into the limit. And this is where the revenge comes in. I had the next 2 days off, so the next morning, bright and early, I got out the hedge trimmers. I trimmed the ends of the pile back to exactly 9 feet in length after carefully lined those trimmed bits on top of the pile, and I went to the backyard where the limbs I had not trimmed up the week before were stacked for the following week's pile, and found 4 long, fairly straight limbs. I removed all the smaller limbs and leaves from these limbs, ending up with 4 moderately straight poles, each about 7 feet long. I marked 1-foot intervals on each pole in fluorescent orange paint and stuck them in the ground. Out at the curb in the front yard, at the corners of a rectangle exactly 5 feet wide and 10 feet long, got our surveyor's tape, bright pink plastic tape used to mark property corners, and tied it onto and around the stakes at the height of 5 feet. This established the visual outline of the volume I was required to stay within. I made absolutely sure that everything in the pile was completely inside the poles and below 5 feet in height. This required adding almost 2/3 of the remaining pile in the backyard to the stack out front to bring it up to 4 feet 6 inches in width, 4 feet 6 inches in depth, and 9 feet 6 inches in length, and no pieces longer than 46 inches. The pile was almost twice as much material as before. This included some small logs up to 4 inches in diameter, also each 46 inches long. The limit is 5 inches diameter, all within the limits of 5 feet by 5 feet by 10, the waste company mandates. All within the limits of 5 by 5 by 10 feet the waste company mandates. I carried each of the 3 bags of clippings to the backyard and filled each of them as much as possible, while still being able to fold over the tops and staple shut each bag. I also included some 8 to 10 inches sections of the ends of larger limbs for added weight. The bags were now completely filled and weighed more than twice what they had before. I had to use a hand truck to get them out to the curb. They were so heavy. Oh, and all the extra clippings I had generated filled up 2 more bags, so the total was now 5 bags, the company limit. I then went inside, called the company, and very nicely asked that they come to pick up my yard waste, since they had not done so on Tuesday. They agreed to send out a truck and crew, and told me I would have to pay the fee. Come on then, I told them. They soon arrived and happened to be the same crew that normally comes to my neighborhood. I pulled a 25-foot Stanley tape measure from my pocket and asked them to measure the poles to confirm that the space was within the required limits. They did so and agreed the pile was not oversized, and proceeded to spend the next 2 hours manually loading it all onto their truck. Oh, and it took both of them to manhandle each of those bags into the back of the truck too. I told them very nicely and with a smile that I knew what 10 feet was, pointed to the fence where it was marked with orange electrical tape, and thanked him for coming to pick up my yard waste. The 2 tired, sweaty, waste disposable guys just groaned, got in their truck, and drove off. There was no extra fee added to my bill for that month. Never has been since. Now, I know they got paid for their time, and I know that I had to do a lot of extra work on my day off, but since last July I have not once ever had them leave so much as a single leaf on the ground in front of my house. They had to actually do some hard work with me standing there in shorts, smiling and drinking cold Gatorade while they were sweating. I, 18 female, am away at college, and my sister, 16 female, is still at home with our parents. Moving out of my parents' house was totally the biggest relief of my life. They always favored my sister over me, and they also wanted me to dedicate a lot of time to her. She always wanted me to, and is very needy when it comes to my time. My parents spoiled her that way. Some examples of this: she got better Christmas gifts than me, while I would maybe get some books and clothes instead of gaming stuff for art supplies on my list. She got a new TV or a new phone, new laptop, calico critters and trampolines when she was younger, and all kinds of scooters and stuff. She would get gifts to open on my birthday and would often get to blow out my candles, and my parties had to be catered for her, but hers were not catered to me, and I never got a gift at her birthday parties. She got to choose where we get takeout once a week, and I had no input. She got her room freshly decorated once a year, and however she wanted, but I only had mine done twice when I could remember, and I had no input. She got to have a TV and her laptop in her room, but I could not. She never had to include me when seeing her friends, but my parents would insist I had to include her with mine. They have a college fund for her, but they never had one for me. She could ask for money whenever and always got it. I was always told I should earn money when I asked. Even when I was a little kid, they know her favorite foods and they don't know mine. They used to call her favorite food as mine and would dismiss me when I corrected them. I did try talking to my parents before, and I had my grandparents help me a few times as well, and all it did was make my parents kick my grandparents out and refuse to let me see them. They scolded me every time I spoke up and told me I should love my sister. My sister was always so demanding of my time and my attention, and when I would tell her I didn't have the time or I had the plans, she'd say she should come first or she was more important than anything else. She also used to say she should be my first priority. For Christmas, I decided to stay at college and join some of my friends who weren't going home. I told my sister I wasn't coming home and she got so upset. She told me she'd miss me and I should come home to see her, but I made it clear I wasn't. Ever since Christmas, she has been on my case about not coming home. She called me on New Year's and told me I should have come home so she could see me because she deserves that. I got so frustrated with her and told her the world doesn't revolve around her, despite our parents making her feel like it does. She cried down the phone to me and said it was mean and that I talk like I don't miss her. I didn't tell her this, but I don't. It has been great not seeing her every day. She and my parents both blew up my phone after that, saying I was awful to talk to my sister that way. Was I in the wrong here? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, not the jerk at all. I honestly wouldn't even say that your sister is either. Your parents are the ones who straight up conditioned her to believe that she should be everyone's priority and that she's entitled to everything. Your parents suck. Another commenter adds, not the jerk. Your sister has been enabled to be the entitled golden child. The way your parents treated you isn't okay. One of the hardest things in life can be accepting that you aren't ever going to get what you need, such as love, fairness, and respect from the people you should be able to trust most. The way your parents treated your grandparents for speaking up for you also shows who they really are. One of the most liberating is when you realize you can get those needs met elsewhere and be happy. Good on you for staying at college with your friends for Christmas. You can go as low contact with your birth family as you want. Therapy can help you work through things if need be. Good luck with everything. A third commenter goes with, not the jerk. I don't blame you at all for making that choice after the way your parents treated you. I hope your sister is still young enough to learn that you are correct, that the world doesn't revolve around her, and maybe she will learn and grow and do better in the future. Your parents are the main jerks here. They essentially puppeteered the resentment and hurt between you and your sister. For background, I have always been an incredibly hard and efficient worker, always getting things done faster than expected and doing above and beyond. My program for college required us to go to class for 6 months of the year and work full-time in our field for the remaining 6 months. As a freshman in college, I got my first job at an automotive supplier. My first semester was fairly slow, mainly due to the fact that the person who was supposed to train me went on medical leave my first week there and didn't come back for almost a year, and wasn't replaced. However, in my second semester, things really took a turn for the worse. 2 key things happened at the start of the next semester. 1, I was moved to a new department, and 2, the company began merging with one of their competitors. Now, when the company began the merger, they decided they were going to move everything at my site to the other company's headquarters in another nearby city. The first thing that moved was a vast majority of the equipment my new department used. The upper management made the brilliant decision to leave the 4 members of my department at the old site until the move was complete. 1 supervisor, 1 tech, and 2 students. This meant we had essentially nothing we could work on. Here is where we get into the malicious compliance. After about 2 weeks of sitting around, my supervisor, 60 female, finally came up with a small task for me. I completed this in about 4 hours, which I thought was pretty good for something I had never done and had little training on. So I went to let her know. Hey super, I'm done. Super, angry and in panic, done? This was supposed to take you all week. I don't have anything else for you to do now. I need you to look busy in case boss walks by. Next time I give you something to do, You need to drag it out longer so that you look busy. Now, a young naive me was initially confused by getting reprimanded for working too fast, but what the boss says goes. A week or so later, I was given another task. I was to take thousands of these tiny explosive devices we use and dispose of them by detonating them in a concrete box. They were too volatile to just throw out, so they had to be discharged first. She tells me, and remember to take your time and don't go through them too fast. Now this was obviously just busy work to get me out of the way, but the great thing with this task was it had to take place in a back garage that nobody ever went in to avoid the obvious danger of people walking in while I was setting off controlled explosives. I could have easily hooked up 20 of these bad boys at a time and set them off every 5 to 10 minutes, finishing the whole batch in about a week, but I had to look busy. So instead I set off about 5 to 10 of these once an hour. I spent the rest of my time on my phone playing games, watching Netflix, listening to music and so on, while getting paid over double minimum wage at the time. I managed to stretch that project for the remaining 2.5 months I was there, finishing just in time for the end of the semester. Anytime someone asked me for help on something else, I politely told them I would when I was done, but it might be a while because Super told me to not go through these too fast. They usually ended up finding some other bored students to help them. I think my Super genuinely forgot I worked there by the end, because when I stopped into her office last week to let her know that I had finished the task, she seemed very surprised and confused to see me. The company ended up paying me over $10,000, a lot of money for a student at that time, just to sit on my phone all day for 3 months. I sent an email to my supervisor, boss, and HR at the end of the semester, letting them know that I would not be returning the next semester. In my best corporate language, I let them know that I was leaving to pursue opportunities that would better utilize my time and skills. I found out later when several of us ran into each other at a job fair that all but 2 of the other students had also quit at the end of the semester out of boredom and/or uncertainty that we would even have jobs to come back to. The company did not handle the transition well and could never give us straight answers about where/when/if we would be brought back.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.